What has 5 houses, 2 farms, a pallet warehouse, lawnmower shop, breakdown service and pretty much nothing else? Answer: Brighton. Not our Brighton, of course, but the one in the very centre of Cornwall. Locals call it Brighton Cross, but its official name is just Brighton. You've probably seen it pop up as an option when searching for Brighton in online maps, store locators, etc. It's basically just a roundabout, so I wouldn't advise going there on holiday. But there are lots of other Brightons all over the world, and we're going to look at some of them right now. Roll titles. Whilst Cornwall is the only other just Brighton in the UK, we must here mention New Brighton. Located across the Mersey from Liverpool, this was created in the 1830s by the entrepreneur James Atherton as an attempt to recreate the flavour of South Coast Brighton, but up north. Today it has a population of around 15,000 and the UK's longest promenade at 3.5 kilometres. Although now a town in decline, in the early 20th century it was a crazy popular resort, boasting the tallest tower and the largest lido in the country, 2 piers and loads of other stuff. It also had a professional football team. New Brighton Tower FC competed in the Football League several years before Brighton and Hove Albion was even founded. Their stadium was the second biggest in the UK, with a capacity of 100,000, although it was never more than 20% filled. If you're wondering which is closest to actual Brighton, Cornwall Brighton or New Brighton, the answer is they're both the exact same distance away, 350 kilometres, but neither wins the prize. Our closest namesake isn't even in this country. Imagine you set off swimming directly southeast from the end of the Palace Pier. After 140 kilometres you will hit land. You have arrived on the French coast, just east of Cayeux-sur-Mer, in a little village called, yes, Brighton. But you won't find much here. A few houses, some care homes, a campsite, fishing club, lots of trees, and this here lighthouse, which for some reason they have built half a mile inland. If French Brighton is the closest Brighton to Brighton, then what is the furthest away Brighton to Brighton? Imagine you started drilling a hole in the centre of town, in front of the clock tower say, and imagine you somehow drilled right through the centre of the earth. Ouch, hot, yeah? You'd pop out at Brighton's antipode, at the opposite point on earth, and you wouldn't know what day it was, because you'd be right on the international date line in the middle of the South Pacific Ocean. Want to head for the nearest land, excluding uninhabited rocky islands, you'll need to swim for almost 900 kilometres and you'll reach land on New Zealand's South Island, just along from the city of Dunedin. The small coastal town you've washed up at is called Brighton. Yes, the furthest place on earth from Brighton is Brighton. They did that on purpose, didn't they? In fact, New Zealand used to have a lot of Brightons, but many now go by old or new Maori names. One's called Tiramona, for example. Christchurch does have a suburb called New Brighton, which most locals call Brighton, and that has this awesomely concretey pier. And what of New Zealand's neighbour, if you can call being separated by 2,500 miles of ocean neighbours, Australia? Well, that has loads of coastal towns and suburbs called Brighton too, such as this one, which is a bit off Adelaide. The most well known is a suburb of Melbourne with a population of 20,000. Famous for its brightly coloured beach huts, this Brighton is super affluent. Its Golden Mile is where former Aussie sports stars live, such as Shane Warne, Ricky Ponting and Kathy Freeman. If you include the state name, this place is actually called Brighton Victoria, which is the name of a train route. Other former bits of the British Empire are also awash with Brightons. South Africa has 2. One is a suburb of Johannesburg, whilst the other is a township in Port Elizabeth where the armed wing of the ANC was founded. Canada boasts 4 Brightons. The biggest, with a population of 11,000, is an artificial island full of old folks on the banks of Lake Ontario. There are 2 tiny ones in Nova Scotia and a marginally less tiny one located on Newfoundland's brilliantly named Brighton Tickle Islands. But the prize for most Brightons goes, as you might expect, to the US of A. More than half of the 50 states have at least 1 Brighton. New York State has the most, 4, and that doesn't even include Brighton Beach, the bit of New York City full of Russians and Neil Simon plays. Pleasingly, the video game Grand Theft Auto 4 renames it Hove Beach. Other countries with Brightons include Malaysia, Jamaica, Guyana, Barbados, Trinidad and many more. And that is the story of Brighton's What Is Not Brighton. Goodbye. Next week on Fact Me Up, hello ladies. We look at some pioneering women's from off of the history of Brighton.